Welcome to the Cast and Camo podcast, where we talk about hunting, fishing, and all things outdoors. Grab your fishing rod, put on your favorite camo, or just sit back and enjoy this week's topic. Cast and Camo begins now.
What's up, Eric?
Hey, Todd, how are you?
Going down. We are early today.
Yes, we are. Real early.
Real early. And I haven't decided if I like it or not. It definitely gave me less time to prep, but it's going to give us more time to enjoy some celebratory drinks afterwards. How about that?
There you go.
Never know. You never know. Good afternoon. Normally it's good evening. Good afternoon to everybody that's watching live. We are live on Twitch as Cast and Camo. You can find us on YouTube after the fact at Cast and Camo TV, and you can check out our website, ! Website. If you're in our chat, I'll type it in. That brings you to our website where you can see our last 12 shows. You can check out our merch, and we're going to be doing more with the merch because I think there's some way to do giveaways or giving or gifts from Fourth Wall for our merch. So it's all new to me, so we'll have to figure that out. But the big news of the night, well, I'm going to leave the big news. We're going to leave the big news. We'll start with our normal housekeeping topics of, well, you kind of already touched on the YouTube. Subscribe, like, and comment down at the bottom. Our sponsors, we love our sponsors. Texas Select Seasonings, Wild Bill. We'll get them back on the show at some point. Cast and Camo as a discount code in all caps will get you 15% off. And do I have my sound bites? I don't know if it's playing. It's not playing, but that's okay. Save that money. Then we got Sea Arc Boats. We're both wearing our Sea Arc Boats hats again. We still have to every once in a while talk to Alex. I don't know if you reach out to Steve or Alex, Eric, much.
I talked to Alex like 2 weeks ago. That was the last I talked to him. We'll
eventually get them on the show. He's super busy with tournaments, and I saw they're doing some Sea Arc demo drives and rides. They're busy, man. I get it. It's boating season. It's fishing season. They're going to be busy, but we'll try to get them back on the show, and we got to get down there. We got to get down to the factory.
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun.
We'll get
with any luck. The timing would be that we could get down there, and I would have my windshield for my boat done because it's basically right across the road from where the factory is, and I could just pick up the windshield instead of paying $60 for shipping. Instead of paying $60 for shipping, I can put it in a suitcase and pay $40 to get it on the plane. Something like that. It's crazy. Deer 30. We have Deer 30 as another sponsor. Cast and Camo 24 to get 24% off. The big amount of 24% off. And here's what I'm going to say about Deer 30. When they were on the show, we had a bunch of people place their orders, and I know a couple guys got their orders, and then Kelly hit me up this week and was like, hey, I can't get in touch with them because all of their links seem to be not working, which I had to explain to Damon. he's like, you're full of great news today. But Kelly's order something got messed up with Kelly's order, and she didn't get it in time. And I'm going to tell you right now, Damon bent over backwards to make sure that he got that order out as soon as he could the other day. To get it to Kelly, even though it was I think it was a birthday gift for Cliff, so it didn't really work out as well as she was hoping, but it was it was one of those things. Sometimes things happen, and they'll get it. So they're great dudes. They're going to make sure everybody's taken care of. And it is that time. It's that time to start planting your food plots and doing that stuff. It's that time of year. So if you haven't checked them out, Deer 30, check them out. There's a link to their website right in our chat. And again, if you're watching or listening after the show and you want to be a part of the live chat, come on and join us Sunday nights on Twitch, Cast and Camo. Give us a follow. We'd love to have you in chat. Now, tonight we have a good guest, and it's kind of in my head, it kind of goes with Deer 30 a little bit. There's a lot more to it. But it's kind of specifically linked in my head. Maybe it's not. I could be just making it up. But last week we talked to Rick Spicer. He gave us all sorts of great information on survival instructions and that whole baseline, which I think people that are going into the outdoors should have that knowledge, and me being included. I need to take some classes. I do. I have to admit that I need to take some classes to get better. There's always room for improvement, right? I mean, as an ex-DNR official, Eric, I would assume you also promote outdoors people to be as knowledgeable as they can about living the dream in the outdoors, making sure that they're safe.
Yep. It's the biggest thing is safety.
Man of many words. Yep.
Many words.
Next week's going to be interesting. We have a great. I'm pumped for the guest next week. Chick of the Woods Foraging. She is all about the mushrooms and foraging in the forest. She's on. I didn't know you said last time the morel mushrooms for you guys are kind of over, but it's just kind of kicking, just starting to kick now up here.
Right.
So she's got that going, but she's going to make some time for us. Now I'm going to be in South Carolina, so I have to figure out how to get some of this equipment down there so I can do the show from the hotel room. And somehow I'm trying to fit in a fishing excursion on that next Sunday. It might be a little chaotic. I don't know. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But that's next week. And then tonight, by popular demand, we have a giveaway to do at the end of the show tonight. And it is courtesy of Texas Select Seasonings. Wild Bill's reaching into those deep pockets, and he's going to supply some amazing things with 2 bottles of Texas Select Seasonings barbecue rubs, 1 bottle of barbecue finishing glaze, and 1 choice of green hot or red mild salsa. So after whoever is the winner, you'll provide us with your name and shipping information, and we'll get it to Wild Bill, and he's going to get that out. No scarf and mittens. No scarf and mittens. It's still kind of winter. It was snowing a couple days ago. I could use some mittens though. You never know. And normally we do emails, right, Eric?
Yes.
We didn't do emails last week because nobody emailed. I'm still holding on hope that, we're going to get one of those emails from Wyoming. He keeps threatening us with a good time, but never actually comes through. So we'll see if Jim eventually sends an email. But tonight, I don't have anything to share or do anything like that, but it's a story from our community. And it kind of made my day. It made my day. So Cheryl, who is actually one of our VIPs for Cast and Camo and my channel, Vex_X, shameless plug. Even though I really don't stream anymore, we'll see. But Cheryl B. Allens is in a chat, or if she's not chatting, she's listening, or she checks out our VODs on YouTube. She's awesome. She was inspired by our show with Her Wilderness. And she went and found something that was available and close to her. And she took a ladies fly fishing clinic this past week, inspired by Her Wilderness, which made me happy, because if we don't do anything else, if we can get somebody or one person or 2 people out to do something that they are excited to try in the outdoors, whether that's fishing or hunting, and I think that's the coolest. So kudos to Cheryl for getting out there and trying something new. She said she didn't catch any fish, but she did catch a branch, the same branch a couple times. She didn't want to share that with in the general Discord, but she did have a good time, and I was just excited. And I sent a screenshot of Cheryl's message to Andrea at Her Wilderness and said, "Hey, this is awesome. This is why I wanted you on the show. I knew we could inspire some people, especially our female part of our audience, to go out and try things and get into the outdoors."
Yeah.
How have you fly fished a lot?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I used to fly fish all the time when I lived in PA.
Really?
I can't do it here. There's no trout. There's no. It's not the same here.
If I were you, I'd go fly fishing for the blue cats, or Eric, you're in the carp tournament coming up.
Yes. 24th.
Maybe you've so far been, I'm going to say the S word, you've been skunked so far in your last handful of outings.
Yes.
That's okay, because you can only go up, right?
Well, I threw a catfish up the other day when I.
Well, yeah, but you need carp. So I think that your missing piece is to try fly fishing for the carp. Never know. Maybe that's the missing piece.
Well, I mean, I could, but I'm not going to try it until I find a carp. I got to find them first, Todd. They
Yeah,
got to
that's
be
true.
out there somewhere.
Calling all Kentucky carp.
That's right.
Please report to the nearest flooded field that Eric lives by.
It's blown out down here. I mean, it's like 4.5 miles wide to Ohio River right now.
If I said I was laughing with you and not at you, would you believe that?
No.
No. That's probably good.
You're definitely laughing at me most of the time. So,
yeah.
But no, the weather's going to change eventually.
Yes.
It may be after the carp tournament, but it'll eventually change.
What's your forecast for the week looking like?
Well, I looked at it. I think we're supposed to have rain Tuesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we have rain.
Oh, okay. So that helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps the river because they're showing a drastic decrease in it starting on the 24th, and we're supposed to drop like 15 foot. But then if we get that rain next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, then it'll probably go right back up.
Yeah, just in time for the tournament.
Yeah. Well, no,
So
the tournament's Wednesday.
Well, yeah,
This
but it goes
Wednesday.
on for a few weeks. Right?
Yeah, but I'm going to have to travel. I think I'm going to drive east to the middle of Kentucky. It looks like I'm going to have to drive 2 hours just to go to a lake to try to fish. Because the rest of these places are just horrible right now.
I mean, I don't know why you're even driving 2 hours for one carp. Joker's going to kick everybody's ass anyway.
Joker, listen, Joker ain't going to catch a carp.
Yeah.
I jinxed him. I did the boo-loo. Yeah, he ain't gonna catch a carp. I
see. You put some voodoo on him.
Ozzy also. I did his.
Okay.
They all start on the 24th.
Well, we've seen Ozzy fish for carps. Ozzy's so old that he can hear the reel going off, and then he finally, after he's got to get up out of the chair, and then he's got to kind of limp over to the rod, and now the fish is already gone like 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, but I'm just as bad. I'm the same way.
Well, I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it.
I'm definitely the same way, and I know Joker is too. It's what happens when you get over 90 for Ozzy and Joker.
That's true. That's true. The walker. Yeah. I'd been telling those guys for a while to bring their walkers out with them, but it's rough terrain. Talk about safety of the fishermen.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, but if y'all are out there listening, or watching on YouTube, if you are into fishing and carp fishing and enjoying friendly competition, they're on Twitch. There's what is it? 24th. It starts on the 24th. And there's a plethora of fishermen that will be going hard at the carp for a little friendly competition for however long it goes.
Now, to be fair, it's 3 weeks. To be fair, this is the first time I have carp fished since I've been about 16 or 17.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. I totally support your excuses. And it's good to start with them now. before the tournament starts, it's much harder to convince people that you haven't done it in a long time after 4 days of getting skunked during the tournament. So absolutely, I support you to build that base of an excuse now. Well thought out, well planned, well done. Kudos to you. Anywho, onward and upward to I'm excited for tonight because this is a very interesting topic and I'm excited to learn, and I'm hoping it doesn't get awkward. Eric's going to giggle a couple times because we're going to be talking about some special things. Gamers here for the giveaway. The giveaway will be at the end. Again, 2 bottles of Texas Select Seasonings barbecue rubs, 1 bottle of barbecue finishing glaze, and your choice of hot or mild salsa. So we'll get that going at the end of the broadcast. But let's bring in our guest. I'm probably going to butcher his name. I tried, Dustin. I tried last week, and I'm sure I butchered it. But our guest this week is Dustin Borror.
Good afternoon.
There's Dustin. Did I butcher your name, Dustin?
There we go. You did not. You got it just about right. Depending on what part of the family, some people pronounce the last name Borror, and some people pronounce it Borror. Anything in there, as long as I'm not late for dinner, I'm good.
Yeah, so it's French.
There you go.
That works.
It's French. That's what I'm gonna go. Oui, sacre bleu. All right, so Dustin, everybody, what Dustin does, and I'm gonna give him a chance to explain it because I will not give it any justice whatsoever. But Dustin, you own the business, right?
Yeah, business. I'm the owner. Yep.
So Dustin owns Cervine Repro Solutions, but it's very. So we're going to be talking about trans-cervical artificial insemination. Am I correct there that you only deal with the trans-cervical?
Yeah, I only do trans-cervical. Most states you have to be a vet, and I'm not a vet to do the laparoscopic AI. There's a few states that allow laparoscopic without being a veterinarian, but for the most part, you have to be a vet to do that. So the trans-cervical, you do not have to be a vet.
All right, so give us a high level kind of introduction of yourself, your business, just a high level overview, because I don't want to say anything wrong. So why don't you give us kind of a broad aspect idea of what you do and who you're doing it for, and then we'll get into a lot of the specifics.
All right. So basically what I do is artificial breeding. And it's mostly for private deer facilities. There's always a possibility of larger facilities that are run by a manager instead of the owner. But most of what I do is for private facilities. And for the most part, the purpose behind it is being able to get genetics from one facility that has worked for years trying to get genetics for larger deer, larger antlers, etc., and be able to spread those genetics around to where everyone has the opportunity to take their genetics to the next level, and be able to take their genetics that they've moved to the next level and let other people also have the opportunity for those genetics.
And the one thing I want to kind of make sure that I get out there is what we're talking about tonight really has nothing to do with whether you agree with these private deer hunts or disagree with them. To me, this is more about quiet. You went quiet?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, can you hear us?
No, I can hear you now. The screen is gone.
I see him moving.
Completely.
I see his audio moving.
Yeah, he's talking to us.
Okay, I can hear you, Eric. I can see you, but Todd just disappeared from my screen completely now.
Uh-oh.
Now I've just got you
got a phone call,
and myself on my screen.
Did you get a...
Yeah,
Dustin,
now Todd's back.
All right, you're back, Todd.
I was gone?
Yeah,
that's what he was saying. You were gone.
From my screen, you were completely gone. It went down to where everything disappeared except for just Eric and I.
I don't see Dustin, though.
You don't see Dustin? Yeah, he's there. He's on our channel. He's showing live.
I can see all three of us now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can hear him. I'm talking to him.
I can't hear anybody.
He was
I'm
just
gonna leave the call and come back. How about that? You take
All
over
right.
for a second.
All right. Okay. Go ahead. Finish with your introduction there, Justin.
So that was pretty much my introduction. I basically travel around the area. My two main focuses are collecting and freezing semen on the bucks, and then doing transcervical AI on the does. Most of the breeding that I do with the transcervical is from farms, out in Texas and so forth, that they have the semen shipped in to get some of the Texas genetics out this way. And then I do some freezing for the farms here locally, and they sell their semen to farms around the country and get their genetics out. Um, we have a lot of farms that do also just throw the bucks and does out together for natural cover, to where they have their own genetics going, to where they can sell the offspring and keep their genetics as their genetics. But of course, you never really are able to get the genetics. How do I say this? You can only go so far when you have your own animals, and don't get outside genetics to where that you can basically to get your tree branches larger. As the
Right.
I'm not trying to say that there's too much chance of inbreeding if you don't go with outside genetics, but that's primarily the whole thing with the whole AI part behind everything is if you don't pull semen from other places and ship your semen out, your branches are just going to kind of remain as one stem of a tree, instead of branching out and increasing those genetics for your herd.
Well, of course, they're fenced in too, so that makes a big
Yeah.
difference. You don't get the cross of deer and that coming in from another area into that
Yeah.
area either.
Exactly. If you look at wild herds, wild herds, they travel around, and you have the does will breed with whatever buck comes along that's
Right.
willing to chase them long enough. And so, just because their own patterns, they keep their genetics constantly changing. Whereas when you have a deer farm, and they can only breed with what's on the farm, um, after a certain period of time, your genetics are going to become all the same,
Right.
know. And so by doing artificial insemination, where you're receiving semen from other farms and shipping semen from your bucks to those other farms, that makes it to where you can keep the genetics as wide ranged as you want to.
Right. Todd, do you want to test to see if you guys can hear each other?
Well, in the spirit of our conversation, I will testes 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good.
There we go. We're back.
Good.
You're a good
Video Ninja has
tester.
been giving us fits lately, man.
It was doing great until you tried to pull me into the show.
Well, I have a feeling it might have to do with the sharing of the screen, so we'll just roll with what we've got here, and Dustin, tough luck, okay? Just gonna have to deal
That
with
works. I'm used to breaking the camera anyway, so.
Yeah. So, and if I ask a question that you guys have talked about while I was gone for that 30 seconds, please forgive me. How long have you been doing this?
So for the deer, I've only been doing this since I moved to Kentucky.
Okay.
I've been doing goats and sheep, which are very similar to deer. Probably 20, 25 years now. The deer I just started when I moved to Kentucky, and to be completely honest, it's because I didn't realize before moving here and meeting with people that the person that has to dart the deer is not the person that goes out to do the AI work. Prior to meeting with people here, I thought that me being the person to do the AI work would also have to do the darting of the deer, and I wasn't comfortable doing that with someone else's deer. That, if I get my mixtures wrong, it could end up killing their deer, and I didn't want to kill someone's genetics that they've been working for years and years and years, to just go out there and me get the mixture of the tranquilizer wrong. So
Right.
Once I moved here, I started talking with people and realized that that's up to the farm owner or manager to do the darting, and I just come in and do the work afterwards, and that changed the whole outlook on it for me. And that's when I started doing more of the deer work. And so that's been probably, I want to say about 8 years now, plus or minus.
Okay. How
So-
different is it doing, say, deer versus horses versus sheeps and goat?
So it's very different for your large species versus small species, and then your wild or game species versus your domestic. So the closest to do when you talk your domestic versus wild would be comparing your deer to your sheep and goats. The actual work itself is very similar as far as the method that we use to collect the semen versus the method that we use to do the AI. The big thing that I found to be extremely different when I started doing deer work is that when we go to AI a goat, we just have someone go in, grab the goat, we pick her butt end up basically by her hind legs. I put a speculum in the vagina, put the AI gun down to the cervix, and then just press the plunger on it, and it pushes the semen through the cervix. Deer is completely different because of the fact that most of the deer farms do not have the setup to be able to handle the live animal. And so we end up just darting the deer. And so you're going from an animal that's alive, and they hold their front end up by their front legs, and you have people that grab the back legs and hold their hind end up, to an animal that's typically laying down on their side, or at the very least will get a bale of straw or something and put their butt up on the straw, to where that at least you're AIing downward versus on a horizontal plane.
Sure.
And so for the AI, that's been extremely different for me, just because that's not at all what I'm used to doing. I'm used to a live animal that when you grab their hind legs and pick them up, they hold the front end up with their front legs, and they just kind of stand there. Versus now we've got an animal that's nothing but dead weight that you're trying to maneuver around by hand.
Right.
And then same thing on the side of the bucks. With goats and sheep, you just have a couple of strong guys grab a hold of the male, and you put what we call an electroejaculator. There's a probe that goes into the rectum, and it uses electricity that stimulates the accessory sex glands and causes ejaculation. And with goats and sheep, not a very pleasurable experience. It's not something that I would recommend that you do for your bedtime fun. They don't seem to like it a whole lot. They do not seem to like it a whole lot. So you got to have someone hold on to them, and have people strong enough to make it to where they can't jump out of your arms. And so with sheep and goats, it takes a lot more, I guess you would say, manpower to be able to just grab them and hold them. And deer, again, we dart them, we knock them out, and they just lay there flat on a table.
Yeah.
I found it to be a lot easier with collecting and freezing semen with deer, just because you don't have to have someone that can hold an animal that's not happy about the situation. They're just laying there completely knocked out. So from the standpoint of the bucks, it's actually, I found to be a lot easier to collect and freeze semen within the deer industry. Again, with inseminating on the female side, it's probably a little bit harder, just because trying to move that dead weight around is just a lot different than trying to just hold an animal that you pick their back legs up, and they're kind of helpless to do anything, and try to get away. But at the same token, they use their front feet to keep them in the position you want them to, and it makes it a lot easier.
For some reason, I pictured, like, when you're doing sheeps and goats, that I picture like rodeo. You hog tie them the legs, so they can't kick, they can't get away. Apparently that's not how it's done, which surprises me.
So, you could possibly do that with the females as far as for doing the AI work.
Right.
The problem is, number one, you typically are working with so many numbers that the time it would take to do that would not be feasible, unless you had triple the crew that you could have, people go and catch and tie them up, and then you come along and do the AI. But more importantly, it's because of the fact that to tie them up like that, it would mean that they would probably have to be laying on their side to do the AI work.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't really an efficient way. We grab their hind feet And typically two people, one person left hind, one person right hind, and those people just lift their hind end up in the air. That way we use gravity to actually help the semen go through the cervix and into the uterus. So with their hind end up in the air, you're inseminating them to where that we can't actually take and put the AI gun through the cervix the way we can in larger species such as cattle. So we basically just put the AI gun up against the cervix and just depend on pressure and gravity to push that semen through the cervix and into the uterus. And so by lifting them up, their hind end up in the air, we allow gravity to help with that semen going down through the cervix and into the uterus, versus if you hog-tied them and had them laying on their side, then at that point you're depending 100% on that AI gun being able to pressurize the semen through the cervix. And so your conception rates are going to be a little bit lower.
If I'm a goat farmer, let's start with goats and sheep, either one.
Yeah,
I
goats
have a
and
farm.
sheep, we do
Go
pretty
ahead.
much everything the same that's in
Yeah.
goats that we do in sheep. It's
Yeah.
pretty much identical from those two species.
Let's say I'm a goat farmer and I would call you up. Is that how I would call you up to say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, so for the most part, if you're a goat farmer and you want to get into the AI world and have someone else do it, and I should say that a lot of goat farmers and cattle as well as deer will learn how to do it themselves if they have a large number. But if you either don't have the time to learn it or whatever, you're going to hopefully see my advertisement somewhere and say, oh, there's someone that does AI work. I can just call this person up that already knows the protocols, already has the equipment, already has the drugs that we may need to use. And so you would just call me up and I'd say, okay, well, this is the protocol that we go through to do the AI work. This is what we need to do to start. This is how long we have to wait before we do our next step. And then we go ahead and AI and see what kind of pregnancy rates you get. I do advertise all over the place, so it's more or less the farmers that need it done happen to see my ads wherever the advertisement is, and so then they contact me.
Sure. If so, you're in those instances, you're typically you're doing the extraction from one of the sheeps or goats on that farm, using that to do the AI on the females, or are you bringing frozen semen in to leverage?
Yeah, typically speaking, the farms that are going to do the AI are looking to get genetics from another farm, because usually they've gone about as far as they can with their genetics without getting too much inbreeding going on. So they need to bring in other genetics. And so at that point, for goats and sheep are super easy to do that with, because there are catalogs where you can look and see whatever genetics you want to bring in. Those catalogs will have this buck has, and I should say, in case for the people that are listening, male goats are also called bucks. You can call them bucks or billies depending on where you're from. So when I say buck, it might mean goat, not deer. But if you're looking to bring in, say you're raising Boer goats, and you want to find a Boer buck that is clear across the country to bring in different genetics, you just pick up one of these catalogs from one of the companies. Typically the big companies are the ones that store massive millions of straws of semen, and they go, hey, I like the genetics on this buck. Can we get the semen from this buck in here? And so then I would call up the company that they find the buck they like and say, hey, we need this many straws of semen, and then that company ships those straws to me. I take it out of their shipping tank, put it into my transfer tank, and then when it comes time to do the AI, I just take my transfer tank out and pull the straws out of my tank and AI the doe goats with it. And same thing with sheep. Sheep are the exact same scenario, except with sheep instead of goats.
So if the farmer calls you and says, I need some super sperm for goats, like I want the top of the line sperm for goats, I want a champion goat, does that cost them more?
Yeah, it does. And typically when you start looking at that, not just your general production goats, but say a lot of these farms, they actually show their goats. And so if they're in a situation where they're looking for something that is known to win, where in the show ring,
Yep.
then they're going to be, instead of looking at the big companies like that, they're probably going to be going onto Facebook or someplace like that, finding other farms that raise goats and show, and they see, okay, this person won at this fair this year and used this line of genetics to win with, and so they're going to either contact that farm and say, hey, we saw that you won, we really like the lines that your goats have, we'd like to buy some semen from you. And then that farm would either say, well, find someone that can do the work and has a tank that you can store it in, and that's where I would come into play at that point. Or a few of the people that I have done work for in the past said, hey, do you know of anybody that's got good semen, or this is what I'm looking for. I want something that's going to win everything in the county fair. Then I'll go, okay, well, I've seen this year at the county fairs that they've already been to, everything from this buck won across the board. Then they say, well, can you get us semen? And then I'd have to work out with the farm that buck is at, how much does it cost for semen? And in that case, when you start talking about the higher end show animals, then yeah, it's definitely going to cost them more money to get those straws in.
Are we talking like 4-figure thousands?
Nah, not so much in goats, typically speaking. That's pretty unheard of. So say for instance, your typical goat is going to be, anywhere from $25 to $50 a straw. And then if you're going to talk about some of your higher end show goats, then you might end up be talking, at that point, $400 or $500 a straw versus 25 or 50.
Okay, now you're talking. If I'm selling sperm, it ain't going for $50.
But the thing of it is, I can guarantee you the deer and the horse goes up.
Yeah, deer
sure,
and horse
right?
definitely go up.
Yeah.
And you got to remember also, when we're talking about sheep and goats, most of the animals that we are looking at for that, we're talking production animals that are raised for wool, meat, milk, and we're not so much looking at, a lot of people say, well, shoot, a straw of semen, that's only $25 to $40. You can't make any money on that. But when you sell 1,000 straws at $25 or $40, now you're talking money, because all these farms that have the goats and sheep, and even in the cattle world, you're doing everything based on numbers, not based on price per straw. So you look and say, okay, that straw is only $25. I'm not making enough hardly to pay for lunch at that point. But then if you have some of the big facilities that freeze a lot of semen, especially in the dairy industry for dairy cattle, they may sell 1 million straws a year on one bull. And so you figure 1 million straws times $25 a straw, that ends up being a lot of money, but it's because they're dealing strictly with numbers. When you start talking about horses and deer, that changes from looking at numbers of production animals to price per straw. And then deer and horses, you're looking at a lot more money that goes into the purchase of the straw, because you don't have near as many numbers that you're selling.
Right.
What is your success rate from
Good question.
deer
For deer
to
versus
goats, whatever? I mean, what is your success rate basically?
So your success rate is going to be based on a lot of different things. Timing is number one. Okay, the timing of when you inseminate that female, whether you're talking sheep, goat, or deer, because and again, comparing apples to oranges, horses are in heat for a long period of time. You have a lot of time that you can get semen into that female before she goes out of heat. Goat, sheep, and deer, they're typically only in heat for around 16 hours, and probably only about 8 hours of that is fertile time. And so your timing is everything when you're talking about deer, goat, sheep, cattle. Basically, your prey type animals, they're not in heat for very long. Second on that is going to be your method of getting that semen into the animal.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good at getting that semen through the cervix and into the uterus, and where it needs to be on time, then your chances are going to be much higher. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is the quality of semen. Sometimes when you have semen that's frozen especially in the deer world, because there's not a lot of options for extender out there. Sometimes you freeze semen, and that semen just does not freeze well. You end up with more dead sperm than live sperm. And so other times, if you have a buck that just really works well with the extender that you use, then you might end up with a really great number of live sperm there going forward and trying to hit their target. So all those things will equal into what your success rate is. Now, I'm going to say that the success rate within deer I found to be a little bit less than what it is with the sheep and goats, probably just because of the fact that we have to dart them. We have to, I mean, anytime you dart an animal, you knock them out, you stress their body. It really plays havoc on their conception rate. Breeding live cover, they're all at home, being out there in the field, they're not stressed, they're not being knocked out, et cetera, et cetera. So your live cover typically is going to be higher. From farm to farm, I'm going to say within the sheep and goat industry, success rates that I found are typically going to be in the 60 to 80 range or percentage range. And that's pretty well across the board because we have it down really well. We've been doing sheep and goats for a long time. Of course, that's trans-cervical. Now, when you talk about the deer world, it goes down a little bit from that just because of the fact that, again, you're knocking them out, waking them up again, usually using drugs to wake them up. All that interferes with the reproductive cycle and can inhibit the timing of ovulation in the female. So you're typically going to run around 30 to 50% within the deer world per insemination, especially using trans-cervical. Now, where that can be increased is when you're talking about doing laparoscopic AI, which unfortunately, like I say, you typically need to be a vet for. The great thing about laparoscopic AI is that when people go and put basically a hole in the abdomen, you can look at the ovaries and you can see, is there a viable follicle on those ovaries? Unfortunately, with the trans-cervical, you can't do that. You go through the routine. We use what are called seeders. Okay, seeders are something that we put in the female's vagina. Basically, they produce a hormone that makes them think they're pregnant for a certain number of days. Then you pull that seeder out. When you pull it out, you're removing that hormone that makes them think that they're pregnant. Then you're giving them a shot that makes them come back into heat and then will cause them to go ahead and ovulate on a timed schedule. The problem with, and that's typically used in all of your livestock type species. The problem with using trans-cervical AI at that point with your smaller species, you cannot look and see whether or not that protocol actually worked and that they have viable follicles on their ovaries. Whereas when you do the laparoscopic, you can look at those ovaries and see, hey, we got this doe here, she's got a follicle on each ovary, so if we AI this doe, she's likely to have twin fawns. Versus you take and you look at that doe's ovaries and there's no follicles whatsoever there, you go, yeah, we shouldn't waste the semen on this doe. We just take the semen and put it in another doe. You stitch that doe back up and she goes out in the field with the cleanup buck and the cleanup buck takes care of her. So your laparoscopic is going to be a higher percentage of conception, and it's going to make it to where that you don't waste expensive straws of semen on a doe that doesn't even have anything that you can breed on.
Sure.
I want to say laparoscopically, the numbers I've heard, and of course, because I'm not in the industry to do laparoscopic, I've heard anywhere from 50 to 70, heard some people say 70 to 80%. The numbers are all across the board. I talked to some people that have 7 does that have someone come in and do laparoscopic AI, and none of those does get pregnant. And I come in and do transvaginal AI, and the same, on the same does next year, and 3 of them get pregnant out of the 7. I go to another farm that hasn't had anything done with their does, and I get 7 out of 10 pregnant. It just depends on the farm. Nutrition goes into a lot of it.
Does the farmer pay per straw, or like if the success rate, let's just say again, I'm the goat farmer and I've got 10 and I'm paying to get 10 goats pregnant. And your success rate the first time around is 70%. So I have 3 that aren't. Do I have to then pay for 3 more?
So
or is there like some sort of a guarantee to say, if you pay for 10, we will get 10 if it takes 2 times, 3 times, 1 time, or how does that work?
So for the most part, because of the fact that it is messing with nature here, we don't really make any guarantees. There will be different contracts. Different people will say, "Hey, if she doesn't get pregnant, we come back and do it again." Dairy industry, we see a lot of that. Dairy industry is a little bit different than the rest, just because of the high numbers that they're dealing with, and most of them are going to go with a company that does the freezing themselves. So I'll talk about the goat and sheep first, and then I'll move to dairy, just because of the
Sure.
difference in them. Goat and sheep, you're pretty much the person that is the whoever's in charge of the farm is going to purchase the semen, whether it's through me or they go and purchase it directly, and then they're going to pay me to do the work. Now, if the females don't get pregnant, it's not very common that you come back and do anything, because unfortunately, we don't know that they're pregnant or not unless the
Right.
farm wants to pay me to come out and do an ultrasound, which is very time consuming, and most farmers aren't willing to put the time in that. You can do see if I can speak this afternoon, trans-abdominal ultrasounds with an ultrasound probe, and you can see whether or not they're pregnant. Problem is, number one, it takes a lot of time to do that. And number two, by the time the babies are big enough that you can see them by that means, it's too late in the year to breed them anyway.
Right.
So what most of your goat and sheep and even deer farmers are going to do, you go through one cycle of AI. You then take those does or ewes, if you're talking sheep, and throw them out with a cleanup male, buck, ram, whatever, after a certain number of time or a certain number of days goes by. That way, if there's any females that don't get pregnant from the AI, hopefully your cleanup animal will go through, breed those females, and get them bred by live cover. Just depending on the operation, you typically want to give at least 2 weeks. That way, when you start having the offspring born, you can tell by when the offspring are born whether they became pregnant from the AI process or from the cleanup animal that you throw them in with afterwards.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating to me. Now, deer. Let's talk deer. So these deer farms, I would assume it's higher stakes than your farm animals. If you have a deer farm, say in Texas, and they're looking around saying, I want this type of specific buck, they're looking for that specific genetics. And is it up to you to find that for them, or are they looking for other places, or how does that kind of community tied together? Are you kind of the middleman to help facilitate that and find what they're looking for?
I can be, typically not though. Most of the time when a deer farm wants to breed to outside genetics, they usually have a buck in mind. And probably the number one place that they're going to find the bucks that they want to breed to is Facebook. Facebook is a big place because there are pages on Facebook where you have all the farmers out there. They will advertise their bucks on that page. So they'll post, photos from this past year's antler growth and say, hey, this is this buck at 1 year old, and this is this buck at 2 year old, and this is this buck at 3 year old, depending on how long they keep that breeder buck. And then if somebody wants to breed to that buck, they'll contact that farm, and then they usually will work out kind of a private treaty deal as far as the cost per straw, simply because Facebook doesn't allow you to advertise, things like that for sale on Facebook without getting flagged and your account closed down.
Right.
But
it's like sperm trafficking on Facebook. It's like
pretty
Tinder
much
for deer bucks.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's gone so far as if you have deer for sale, you don't say that you're selling these deer. You say these deer are looking for a new pasture, something like that. Or if you're selling a breeder buck, you say this breeder buck is looking for a home with new ladies to service, or something like that. Because you can't say.
He is.
Yeah. You can't say that you've got deer for sale, because as soon as you say for sale, Facebook goes, oh, you're selling live animals. We
Yeah.
don't allow that, you know. But nonetheless, most of your deer farmers that are on Facebook, they'll go to the pages that they can advertise their bucks in, and they'll just post a photo. They'll post, what his genetics are, and they'll say, contact for private treaty semen or something like that. And so then you would just send them a private message or call them or whatever, and they'll say, this is what we have for sale. This is how much it is per straw. Usually if you buy a certain number of straws, you'll get a discount. Things like that. So most of the people that want to breed their does to an outside buck, they usually already have an idea what buck they want to breed to. Probably the second place that people are going to find what buck they want to breed to is by going to deer conventions. Almost every state has an organization that is directed toward the deer farming industry in that state. There's just like there's usually hunting organizations in every state, there's also deer farmer organizations in that state. And so if you're a member of those organizations, anytime you go to the meetings, you meet other deer farmers, and they'll say, hey, I saw that this buck that's located at such and such farm down in Texas had semen for sale. And then the person that was hearing about it goes, hey, could I get information on that? Can you give me their number so I can give them a call, or whatnot? And so then it starts from the meeting this person who talked to this person type of deal. And then last but not least is most of your deer breeders organizations are going to have auctions every year where the people that have the bucks can put into the auction, I've got this many straws for sale on this buck. And then people that are there looking to breed to, whatever buck, they see that buck and see his genetics and go, oh, wow, that's, they've got this for sale. And then bidding will start, and they'll auction off those straws at whatever the highest bidder is. And then after that, that's then when they see my ad saying that I do trans-cervical AI, and they call me up and go, hey, what does it cost to do a trans-cervical AI, and when can you come out and do it, and things like that. And so that's
one of the questions I had for you, and I know it's really difficult, but when they buy these straws for deer farms, are they doing several does? Because I know here's the thought I have. I'm a farmer. I'm a deer farmer, and I had some in PA up in Marionville. They had a huge deer farm. Actually, the buck we had up there got stolen at one point. So what was weird about it is you bring that in and you inseminate 2 does, and both them does have fawn does. It was just wasted, that entire thing, basically, correct?
Yes and no. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. So whether you are looking to have doe fawns or buck fawns, if you're looking for, like in the situation that you're talking about there, where their breeder buck was stolen, and then you breed your does to try to get another breeder buck. Yeah, unfortunately, you've kind of just thrown away that money. But at the same token, that now gives you more animals that you can breed this coming year, and be able to get more chance to get another breeder buck. And so it again, it's going to depend on how you look at it. One way you look at it, you go, well, shoot, we still didn't get a breeder buck this year. All we got were doe fawns. And so we're still going to have to buy semen from someplace else and hire someone to come in and do the AI. And so, we're still looking at more money out, versus if we'd had a buck fawn born, then we could just let him do the breeding and not have to spend that money. But you could also look at it the other way and go, well, if they bred only to one buck, then, well, that if a buck fawn was produced from that, then he wouldn't be able to breed anything but whatever other doe might have been on the property. He couldn't breed his mother. He couldn't breed his sisters. At least, from a genetic standpoint, you probably shouldn't. Of course, there's lots of line breedings there, and basically, if you inbreed and it works, it's called line breeding. If you inbreed and it don't work, it's called inbreeding.
So, how many does do you normally do, though? If I call you out to my deer farm, Do you just do 1, 2, or do you,
So
how's that handled?
it's going to be on a private treaty type deal. Of course, I prefer to go to a farm where we have more does to do that way. I'm making more money in one day. But that's not to say that, especially if I have someone close by that says, hey, I've got 2 does I'd like to AI. I'll pay you for your travel time. Would you mind coming out to do 2 does? Yeah, sure. I'll come out and do 2 does if I don't have to travel halfway across the country to just do 2 does. If someone down in Texas called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to come and AI 2 does for me, and all I'll pay you for is your gas and your AI for 2 does." Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to do it, not because I don't want to do the work for them, but just because it's not economical for me to
Right.
go down to AI 2 does.
Right.
So it economy unfortunately plays into a lot of that. Do I like doing the work? I do. So I try to help out as much as I can because it's a field of work that I like doing and I like helping people out. But at the same time, if I end up losing money out of the prospect, then probably not. But yeah, again, here locally, if someone here in my part of Kentucky said, "Hey, I've just got 1 doe. Would you mind coming out to AI that 1 doe?" Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem with doing that.
Right.
So I have 2 questions that are going to be probably weird. Is there a sperm black market?
I wouldn't say so much black market. The only way you would have a black market on that is if someone has managed to steal semen. So, say for instance that, um, like for me, I freeze semen on bucks, and some of my clients want me to take and store that at a large facility. Another client say, hey, you did the freezing. I just want you to do the storage and everything yourself. So could I go and sell that semen without the buck owner knowing about it and have all these fawns that are born from semen that was stolen? Absolutely, it'd be easy to do. But are you going to shoot yourself in the foot later on down the road because either A, they can sue you for it if they find out, or B, you're going to ruin your reputation? Absolutely, because if you go doing stuff like that, someone will find out down the road because almost all deer farms nowadays, the deer are genetically tested to where that we can keep track of this buck produces this with this type of doe, etc. So if someone starts sending semen or starts sending DNA samples in for genetic testing, it's going to be on record that, hey, this fawn was by this buck out of this doe. And then if someone that owned that buck finds out about it, they go, oh, wait a minute. I didn't sell that semen. I didn't approve that breeding. So at that point, then they're going to find out, and they can come after you with a lawyer, or tell everyone under the world, don't have this guy do work for you. He's going to steal semen from you and go and sell it without you making any money off of it. And so yeah, you could do it, but you will be found out, and it will bite you in the hind end real quick. So
there is really no such thing as, I'm not saying you do this or whatever do this, but let's pretend I'm you. And I have the tools, the ability, the knowledge to do all of this AI and the collection. And I go to farmer deer farm X and I say, I want to buy your sperm, 20 straws, 100 straws, whatever it might be. And you're buying that for X price. And then you're freezing it and you're holding it. And then you have other clients that are saying, hey, I'm looking for this type of deer semen with this background. And you've kind of got your little black book of here's what I bought. I bought it. So I now own it. Can you then sell it at an upcharge?
Yeah, absolutely. In that case, that is a legal one, and there really should be some kind of written contract for that, and that is a legal method of doing that. So that happens a lot in not just deer, but sheep, goats, cattle, etc. as well, where you'll have the person that's doing the work will have, like, say, okay, I'll give you an example here. A lot of times when we go to AI, especially in the deer industry, I'll pull out a straw and go to AI a doe. And anytime I thaw out a straw, before I AI that doe, I look at it under a microscope to make sure that it looks like it's, viable semen.
Right.
I can't tell you the number of times I've received straws and I put it on the microscope and there's no sperm there. And so you talk to the doe owner and say, hey, take a look in this microscope to see that there's nothing swimming in there. And so I can show them that there's no sperm in that straw. And at that point, they're going, well, what do we do? We've gone through all this process of getting this doe ready to breed. And now we don't have any semen because we only bought 7 straws of semen. We have 7 does. Now we have 6 straws that are viable and still 7 does. What do we do? I always have semen in my tank that can be bred to other does in an instance like that. So I'll say, well, if you want this genetic here, I've got this buck that straws of semen from him are $250 or whatever, and this buck was owned by this person, and I purchased the semen, or sometimes I'll even do a thing where when I freeze semen on a buck, I'll do the freezing for free, in the case that I get to keep part of that semen that I can turn around and sell. And so I might go, well, I've been given permission to sell this semen from this buck as part of compensation for doing the freezing. Here's what your options are. If you want, we'll go ahead and thaw this out, put it in your dough, since the other straw doesn't have anything living in it. And so that is definitely a method that is legal to do that with, and it's done a lot. Most of your people that do the AI services always have semen on hand in case a straw that they thaw out either doesn't have sperm in it, or all the sperm are dead. It's not as common to receive straws that don't have semen in them as it is to receive straws where all the sperm are dead. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you have semen that's being handled, you may have it to where it goes through multiple sets of tanks, and someone didn't follow protocol, and the straw thawed out and got refrozen again when it got put into another tank. At that point, it pretty much kills all the sperm that are in there. And so then you go to thaw it out and inseminate a doe with it, and it's all dead. And so in that case, almost everyone that does AI services will have semen from a multitude of bucks in their tank that they go, these are the bucks that I've been given permission to sell semen on. And sometimes it's where you buy the semen or receive the semen as partial payment for doing services on freezing, or sometimes it's where there's semen that you have in the tank that's still owned by the owner of the buck. You go, well, this buck owner says it's this amount of money to breed with this buck here. And so then at that point, I usually would call up the owner and say, hey, this is the doe that they want to breed. Do you approve this breeding? And then if I can't reach the owner of the buck, then I just go ahead, and if I have the authority to make a judgment call and say, yeah, this would be a good doe to breed to this buck, then I'll go ahead and breed that doe with that semen, and then the doe owner will pay me, and then I'll take that money and pass it on to the buck owner. So there's multiple ways of doing it. The biggest thing is, as long as it is something that is agreed upon and there's some kind of a contract between the owner of the buck and the person that is storing the semen and or AIing the does. As long as you keep everything legal, you're good to go.
Do you run into scenarios where, like, if you're taking semen from a specific buck and multiple times that when you go to do the AI, he's got no swimmers? Do you call that owner to say, look, Spike ain't cutting it anymore. He's past his prime. His swimmers are gone. We need to find a different buck?
So typically speaking, you don't run into that because of the fact that anytime we freeze semen on a buck, we, as the person that's doing the freezing, looks at that semen afterwards. We thaw out one of the straws. We see what we call the progressive motility. That's, how many of those sperm cells that are in there are actually swimming in a forward motion looking for an egg, versus sperm cells that are dead or swimming in circles, doing the doggy paddle at the edge of the pool trying to get out and can't. So we, as the professional that is doing the freezing, are supposed to look at that and make sure that the semen is good before we advise the owner to sell it. Now, once it is frozen, as long as all protocols are maintained by every person that has that semen in their possession, that semen should theoretically last for thousands of years without, having any degradation of the sperm cells that are in there. Once it's frozen, the liquid nitrogen that we keep it in keeps the straws at minus 376 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, if I remember right. And so basically it makes it to where, say if you put meat in the freezer in your house, if you leave it in there too long, it starts to get freezer burn and all that.
Yep.
Well, that's because the fact is, it's been stored in that freezer in such a way that even though it's frozen, it's still going to have the water that's in it's going to evaporate, and it's going to allow the cells to break down. Because even though it's in a frozen state, there is still some, breakdown goes on because it's not frozen to the point that it keeps atoms from moving, basically. But when we freeze semen in liquid nitrogen at almost minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit, it is so cold that the atoms basically stop moving. And so your breakdown of those cells pretty much comes to a halt just because there's no movement whatsoever. And so theoretically, semen, once it's frozen, should last 1,000+ years. It'll last long enough that we have, as a species, have not been around long enough to see any of the semen that we frozen become unusable while sitting in a tank. Now, if it's semen that you froze and it doesn't look good at the point that you thaw it out initially, at that point you need to talk to the owner of the buck and say, hey, we froze semen on him, but it really doesn't look like it's something that you can sell. I would hate to be the person that's receiving this and having to try to get a doe pregnant on it. And in that case, then it's going to be up to the owner to throw the semen away, keep it for just their does, or if they want to take the chance and still try to sell it to someone else, then that's on them. But I'm not going to put my seal of approval on it, say that, hey, this is great semen, go and sell it across the countryside. I'm going to all the documentation I'm going to have is going to say, if you try to use the semen, your conception rates are going to be considerably less than what you would like because it's not very good.
Sure.
So there's definitely possibilities of scenarios like that. But as far as a buck that is doing well and then all of a sudden doesn't, you're not typically going to see that because for the most part, when you freeze semen on bucks, you're only going to do, a few freezes unless he really sells well, in which case you're still probably only going to do so many freezes within his lifetime before he's either retired or they move on to bigger, better genetics where his offspring outproduce him. So now they've started breeding his offspring instead.
Right.
And
Right.
so he doesn't really get old enough for his semen to start getting lesser quality.
Are there, so kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about with, you have options in your bag of tricks, we'll call it. If something isn't working, you're going to, I have this. Are there, we lost him again.
You said we have this, and he disappeared. I was like, oh, wow, that was a good trick.
I mean, I thought it was going to be a good question.
Myself.
There he is.
Oh, there's Eric back.
There he is.
Can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, I can hear you. You can hear me, but Todd's gone from my computer.
I
don't know if
you're gone again for him.
You were both gone for a little bit. Now you're back. Todd's not.
What in the world? We got to figure out something other than Video Ninja, because he can't hear anything.
I don't know
I'm
if
saying,
it's my
right?
end or not. I'm on Starlink, so.
Well, no wonder, fucking Starlink.
Yeah, we
All
could
right,
have
well,
clouds going by and.
So Eric, here's the question that I would like to
killing
ask.
my computer.
Okay.
So if you can hear me, right, Eric?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you ask that.
Yeah, I
the
can hear
question,
you
then
fine.
I'll leave and I'll come back. But my question is, well, I have a specific question, but another question I think Smokey was asking it. Has he done crossbreeds like whitetail versus blacktail, things like that?
I've seen that, yeah.
I'll leave and I'll come back.
All right, so Dustin, have you ever done any crossbreeds between like a whitetail, a blacktail, I'm going to say this stupid, but an elk and a moose? You know what I mean? Have you ever done any kind of crossbreeding?
I have not. Not to say that doesn't, that people don't do that. It's never been something that I've been requested for, but there are a lot of people that will breed, especially some people like to breed mule deer and whitetail deer together,
Right.
because that comes up with a larger animal than what the whitetail is going to produce, but at the same token, they're going to have more of that whitetail look to them. So there are a lot of people that will do cross species, and sometimes it comes up with a good cross, and sometimes it doesn't. Todd, you are back in visual. I don't know if you can hear me though.
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, and I can hear you. So we're back. Whatever
Well,
happened.
I know that they tried in Pennsylvania, tried to introduce mule deer with whitetail back
Mm-hmm.
in the 50s, 40s, late
Luna.
late 40s and 50s. The question is, it never took place. They never did breed in the wild.
Right.
And they didn't know that then, but they thought they were going to make bigger white-tailed deer by doing that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And typically speaking, if they have the option of breeding with their own species versus another species, you don't see a lot of cross species in the wild like that. Um, I I think there's multiple reasons for that. Number one, whitetail are more aggressive than what mule deer are, and so they more just push them out than try to breed with them. You know, and you being in a situation where you've seen this, I'm sure, where you'll have areas that are populated with mule deer, and as the whitetail come in, the mule deer kind of move on to new places. And so I think it's basically like two different species of snakes that don't really cross because they prefer to breed within their own species. Not that they're going, oh well, it's like racism in humans or something like that, but I think it's more because if you look at the way that the whitetail mating habits are, they're a little bit different than what mule deer mating habits are, a little bit different than blacktail mating habits. Even if you look at the way a mule deer runs versus the way a whitetail runs, and then you look at the way something that's a hybrid between mule deer and whitetail run, they run completely differently. And so, along with the moving differently, their mating habits are also going to be different. And so, what a mule deer buck will exhibit is trying to find does is going to be different than what a whitetail buck is going to exhibit on trying to find does. And so, those does of the whitetail uh, deer are going to go, hey, this isn't a buck that's looking to looking for breeding. This is a buck that's just acting bizarre and weird, you know. As well as the mating habits being different, their general movement habits through I don't want to say migration because that's not true, but as far as just their moving habits of where they hang out in the woods and so forth is going to be a little bit different. And so I think that's probably the reason why you don't see so much of that in the wild. And that's pretty much across most of your species of deer. There's people that will breed red deer to Sika. I've heard of that being a cross. I haven't actually read documents on it, but I've heard people say that they've bred red deer and Sika together and come out with a hybrid offspring. But if you
Interesting.
put red deer and Sika in the same area, will they interbreed together? No, they don't, because there's farms that have red deer and Sika together that don't breed.
Right.
There's also a lot of farms that have axis deer and fallow deer and whitetail deer all in the same pens, and they don't interbreed with each other when they're given the option of breeding with their own species. Now, if you take say a mule deer buck and you put him in with a whitetail doe and they're the only two in the pen, will that mule deer buck breed the whitetail? Yeah, eventually he probably will, just because during the rut he gets frustrated that there's no other does around, and so he takes whatever he can get, basically.
I know how that
We,
goes.
I'm gonna stay away from that one. There.
That's what she said. I just had it was like one of those that's what she said moments. I had to throw it out there.
Hey, you gotta have a laugh. If you
That's
don't have a
right.
laugh, and I learned if you don't laugh in life, you're going to spend your life crying. So you gotta have a laugh.
So before we had some more issues, but if there abilities for people, let's say Eric and I want to get into business we want to be Sir Sperm. That's going to be our business. Eric, I've already decided that I already have LLC being formed. Sir Sperm is going to be the business name. And we want to invest and purchase a whole bunch of deer sperm. So we're going out there. I'm personally going out there to these deer farmers, and I am purchasing all of this different sperm. And then obviously, like we were saying earlier, there would have to be contracts. But kind of like I'm the broker. I'm a sperm broker. Does that make any sense? Do those
Mhm.
are those investors out there?
So there is a little bit of that. I'm not going to say that there's a lot of that, but there is a little bit. And probably the reason that there's not a lot more of that happening than what there is because of the fact that the deer industry is so finicky on what buck is hot and what buck is not. You go and buy semen from a buck today that he's a hot seller, tomorrow he may not be. So you can go and spend, say buy 100 straws at $250 a straw and think you're going to sell them at $400 a straw because today he's a hot thing and you think tomorrow he might be hotter. But then all of a sudden tomorrow the deer industry goes a different direction and all of a sudden that buck is no longer hot and you can't give that semen away at that point. So there's not a lot of the brokering going on because of that fact. You could make millions or you could lose billions. It's a lot easier in the sheep and goat industry because of the fact that you have so many numbers in the sheep and goat industry and cattle and so forth that even if people don't really like that semen tomorrow the way they did today, you can still probably find someone to sell it to for the same price you bought it from or bought it for. Whereas the deer industry, because of the fact that it is all driven on what is hot and what's not, um, you can lose your investment real quick and easy. So most of the people that are going to be doing the sales are the farmers that own the deer, and so for them, say they have a buck A that they want to freeze a whole bunch of semen on because he's producing offspring that have the biggest atypical antlers that are out there. And so you go and you hire someone out to freeze, say, 3,000 straws on that buck. Okay. You're going to have to pay for the process of that person coming out to freeze that semen, the process of knocking that buck down for it, which costs your tranquilizer money, your dart money, etc. But when it's all said and done, you've put out a minuscule amount of money that can be recuperated by selling typically 10, 20 straws. You can recuperate the money that it costs of having those straws frozen. At that point, if for some reason, he is suddenly no longer what the industry wants, you probably recuperated your straw within that first 10 to 20 straw, or I mean, the money to freeze it within that first 10 to 20 straws that you sold. And so you're not actually going to lose money if no one purchases any more than that 10 to 20 straws. Whereas if you're the person that's trying to be a broker and you're buying 100 straws and you're only able to sell 10 or 20, you're going to lose a lot of money on that. So yeah, most of your semen sales are going to come from the people that froze or that owned the buck when the semen was frozen. Unless you have someone like, go ahead.
I can see where the farm animals would be, if you're kind of getting into that broker business or investor business, the farm animals would probably be the easiest route to do that. And because, like you're saying, the deer are pretty specific, whereas maybe the sheep is and the goats and the cattle, somebody just wants sperm, right? So if I just have the sperm,
exactly.
like, doesn't matter.
Yep. Now, and that's done a lot with your sheep, goat, and cattle because, like say for instance, there's one of the big cattle industry or cattle entities, I guess you'd say. They probably have well over 1 billion straws of semen in their storage units because the fact that they go and they freeze millions of straws just on one bull at a time because they know that they can turn around and go to multiple dairy farms throughout the country and sell 100 at this dairy farm and 100 at another dairy farm and 100, and it's not really costing them a whole lot to freeze that semen. They typically have employees that they're paying to do the freezing. They're paying the cost of the extender, which is minuscule in comparison to the amount of money that they're making off the straws. And so those companies, if they have a animal that suddenly is not a hot seller and they go, well, it's taking up room in our tanks and he's not really selling anymore, they just take all the straws and throw them away, and it's not really anything off their not any skin off their teeth because they've made the money back within the first 100 straws they sold, and throwing the rest of it away doesn't really cost them anything,
right? So
Whereas with
are there legit, like for these larger corporations, are there legit sperm salespeople going out with sperm to
oh,
these farms?
absolutely, for the cattle
Really?
industry, especially. Cattle industry is huge. I used to work for a company called Alta Genetics, and typically I don't say names, but Alta Genetics is so big that they don't care.
Right.
It's just kind of advertising for them to say that. They are one of the biggest companies that does cattle semen. And so, and they've got a few competitors, but Alta Genetics is the one that I work for. And so, what they basically will do is they have people that will go to the farms and say, "Hey, this is what we have for our bulls that you can breed your cows to. If you sign a contract with us, they'll do something where if that dairy farm buys X number of straws, they send someone out to that dairy farm that just goes through every single day, checks to see if any of the cattle are in heat. If they're in heat, they AI that cow with
Hmm.
the semen that the dairy farmer wanted to AI that cow with, and then they're basically, as long as the contract is for a certain number of cattle to be bred per whatever the time frame is of that contract, then they just basically purchase the straws and they get the insemination process of that as part of the purchasing of the straw. And the company can do that. Alta Genetics can do that because they have so many straws they're selling to that dairy that it doesn't matter that they are paying someone, and the pay that they give to the person inseminating is good pay,
Right.
but it doesn't hurt them to pay someone to go out there and do that because they're selling so many straws, they recuperate it really quickly. And
I'm just
so,
picturing like somebody. I grew up on farms, right? I'm just picturing somebody showing up at the farm, like slick back, black hair, toothpick sticking out, like, "Hey!" He opens up a briefcase. Look what I've got Billy, I've got Bessie, and what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What can I get you? What can I get you? What kind of sperm do you want today?
yeah, it's kind of like that. It's he usually doesn't have the toothpick in his mouth, but
It's for
it's
extra effects.
right. No, and it is kind of that is, typically the companies that deal with large numbers like that, they'll send a representative out to the dairies, and or at the very least have someone call the dairy if the phone number for the dairy manager is readily available. But otherwise, they'll most of the dairies, anybody can just drive onto the dairy and go to the office, and usually there will be someone in or around the office that can at least direct you to the farm manager. And then that salesperson goes to the farm manager, goes, says, "Hey, I'm such and such from this breeding company. We've got, these bulls that we think would help out your herd, and are you interested? Can we go sit down and talk?" And that's usually how it starts, is they have someone that goes out and basically is a sperm salesman. you know
Yeah.
and so that's, if it's something that the dairy farm goes, "Yeah, our genetics are getting a little bit slim around here. We'd like to start expanding our herd a little bit and see if we can maybe find some bulls that produce offspring that produce a little bit more milk than what our current herd does,
Sure.
etc." And then they'll make a contract for this many breedings per year, or it should say this many straws per year, and then we'll just send someone out to do the AI process, and you're good to go. And the person that they send out is someone that's trained as far as how to tell whether the cows are in heat every day, and when they are, trained in the insemination process. So it's a whole different world when you're talking cattle. For the most part, your sheep and goats are a little bit different, because most of your sheep and goat farms are a little smaller. I say a little small. They're a lot smaller than your dairies, your cattle dairies are.
Hmm.
And so for the
Yeah.
sheep and goat farmer, the companies that freeze the large numbers of straws and store and sell those, they typically just put a book out every year that has, we've got semen from all these different buck goats and all these different rams, and then the goat farmers can take a look at those basically as a sperm catalog, and they can call the company up and go, hey, I want to order this many straws of semen from this buck and this many straws of semen from that buck and or ram, and then they send it the tank out with that semen in it, and they call me up to come out and do the AI. So
Have you
whole
done
different
any
world.
exotic animals?
I wish I could say yes, I have, but unfortunately, I have not. I have yet to break into the exotics world. Most of your exotic animals are done by veterinarians.
Okay.
Depending on the farm, a lot of your farms will hire just the individual that has become a well-known name, and they'll say, "Hey, we heard that you've already had experience breeding giraffes and you've got good conception rate. So, would you come out and breed our giraffes for us?" Type of deal. So there is that goes along, but usually it's veterinarians that do that because of the fact that the veterinarians are the ones that have the easiest time advertising themselves because they've got the DMV behind their name and all that kind of stuff. So that's again your exotics or your high end exotics, I should say, are typically going to be handled by your veterinarians. A lot of times your black bucks and stuff like that, they'll still go ahead and call whoever does the same AI as their deer population, and they'll have do black bucks and so forth. But your more rare exotics are typically going to be done by veterinarians.
So I have a request for you. We're in no rush for this, but if you're out at some of your conferences or whatever it might be, and you happen to come across a vet that deals in walruses, if you come across any walrus sperm, please shoot me a text, let me know, because I would be interested in purchasing and having you freeze it and store it for me. I'd be curious to know if you ever come across any walrus sperm, and if you
would be an interesting one, and there probably is a market for that. That would probably be something that you'd have to go to zoos for. That's not something I've ever.
Zoos.
Well, you're probably right on that because you never know what they might give you. But
yeah, they're like carnies. You can't trust them.
Yeah, well, carnies are specifically there to create distrust.
True.
That's their job. But no, in all seriousness, there probably is a way. I mean, I don't know if you're saying that because you have a pet walrus or something like that. Which, by the way, I think walruses are cool. But
walruses are awesome. I love walruses. I love walruses.
I've never had the opportunity to work around one. I've seen videos of SeaWorld and so forth, but that's about the closest I've ever gotten to a walrus. But there probably is a way to find that. I just don't know how you would go about doing it.
That's why I have you, Dustin. I have my inside guy now.
If I
to walrus sperm.
If I ever hear of it, then I'll definitely call you. But most of the deer people, if I said walrus, they go, "What's that?" It doesn't have antlers, so
it has something better. Tusks. All right.
Yeah,
well, I know you had a time constraint. That's why we started early. So I want to make sure that we give you enough time to get done what you need to get done before you need to head out here shortly. So I love the conversation. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure when I reached out to you, you're like, who is this Yahoo? And what in the hell am I getting into? But
no, it's been good. It's been good. The
I
questions have been legit. So
super interesting. And both for me, I almost find the farm animals aspects as interesting, if not more interesting, because I think that's a bigger market. The deer aspect, I think, is interesting for a completely different. And if you have contacts, like if some of your deer farms, the owners of those farms, if they would be willing to come on as a guest, I would. If you have contacts, absolutely throw them my way. I'd love to have somebody
absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
I will do that.
Eric, do you have any follow-up questions? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. I'm not hearing Eric.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
I was muted because I'm muted because of Luna.
Yeah, she's barking.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm no, I have nothing more. But I really had fun. I appreciate everything, Dustin, and all the information.
Well, likewise. Like I say,
Absolutely.
it's been legit questions, so that's that's a huge plus.
Right.
Unfortunately, in this industry, there's a lot of questions I get asked that is you kind of scratch your head and go,
Yeah.
did you actually have a direction you were going with that question, or yeah, no. So it's a field of work where you hear all kinds of things. So
Well, I appreciate you coming on and being with us, and hopefully we can touch base later down the road and see what happens.
absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Sure thing. All right, everybody, we're gonna sign Dustin off so he can get going where he needs to go. We're gonna switch back to the other screen, then we're gonna do our giveaway. Thanks,
Thank
Dustin.
you,
We'll talk to you soon,
Dustin.
buddy.
Thank
We'll
you all.
see
I
you later.
appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Y'all take care.
You too.
All right, so we're that was fun. I love that. So interesting. I have plethora of more questions that I wanted to ask, but I knew he has a time constraint. So many interesting avenues to go down with that, and some based on morals and things like that. It's a very interesting topic, and I think it's
Right.
going to be a bigger topic as time goes on, with people wanting and having money and willing to pay for these giant bucks that they're going for. All right, so
I can't believe.
was it loud? I don't know.
I wish I could have heard that.
I can adjust it. I didn't know it was that loud. All right, so how this works, say if you've been in Chief's stream, or Eric's stream, it's the same way. We're gonna do exclamation point giveaway. Anybody that wants to join, do exclamation point join. Unfortunately, for those watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify and Apple, you don't have that option unless you come into our live stream on Twitch under Cast and Camo. Join in on the fun, get in on some of these giveaways. We're going to be doing more of the giveaways, but let's get it going. Giveaway. Watch it not work. Is it working? I don't think it's working. Oh, I know why it's not working. Okay, stop. Everybody stop.
Hold it, everyone.
Okay, now it's there. Now it's there.
There you go. So the people that already put in, you don't have to put in.
They're good. They're in there. It was working. We got 50 seconds left to get on in. Everybody get in.
Todd,
Yes.
can Luna do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody get your names in. I'm gonna join.
What do you mean you're gonna join? You can't win?
I mean, I can, but then we just spin over, right? I like to win. I like to be the winning name. Doesn't mean I'm actually gonna take the win.
See, the way I do on my channel is that if I win, I'm gonna get double.
Oh, I'm not getting it. This is
Double. If you win,
Five,
you're giving double.
4,
oh, here we go. Here we go. Get in there. Everybody get in there.
1. Congratulations. Type in chat to claim your
Logan got in at
prize.
the last second, too.
First
Type
time,
something in chat. There it is. Hit Lloyd.
first time he spoke in our chat, he used the word join and won.
Not only can that man do the parachute drop like a pro,
Yeah, no, isn't that something?
He
He's
wins
been like
giveaways.
hammering it. Yeah.
he wins giveaways too. Wow. Well,
So
that
tell
was,
Pitt what he's got to do.
oh yeah, Pitbull, hit us up, hit me up, or Chief up, or Eric, hit one of us up, and we'll need your contact information and your address so we can get and do you even know what you won? I'll tell you what you won. You won two bottles of Texas Select seasoning barbecue rubs, 1 bottle of barbecue finishing glaze, and your choice. So you'll have to give us your preference, either green, which is the hot one, or the red, which is the mild salsa. That is what you won, and we will we'll have Wild Bill send that right out to you. as soon as we can get your information and get that sent over to him. So that's a fun giveaway. We'll have to change the volumes apparently.
Where, Pitbully, you are in the U.S., correct?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
I just want to make sure. Because I know Casey's messing around saying he's in Fiji, but but Pitbully, you
No
are
chance.
in the U.S., correct?
No chance. Yeah, no chance he's in Fiji. And I
know
heard
he ain't in
shipping
Fiji.
to Fiji is cheap anyway, so I'm not worried about it. And what
Right.
are we worried about the shipping?
You're
Wild
gonna
Bill's
fly
paying
down?
for it.
I know.
I'm joking. I'm joking. We'll get an answer. And if we, I should have
If I
put
gotta
that.
ask him tomorrow, I have to ask him tomorrow.
Canada, that's fine. We'll make that work. It's still a pain in the ass, but we'll make it work. I'll fudge it. I'll chip
Is
in
that
for
Canada or California?
Canada.
You're sure?
Yeah, he put the Canadian flag. I don't think California has the same flag as Canada.
Oh, he's got the. I didn't see the Canadian flag.
Oh yeah, just put the Canadian flag in.
All
So
right.
we'll go to. I think it's Canada, which is fine.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
All
Congratulations. Congratulations. And everybody, thanks for hanging out, watching, listening. Interesting topic tonight. I'm sure there was plenty of you giggling behind the scenes, and I know who you are, but that's okay. It was fun. It's an interesting topic. I was a little worried about it at first, but there was definitely a lot of learning, and I think it was super interesting. So any final words from you, Mr. Eric?
No, we appreciate everyone being here. We really do. And I enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoy the show. We're going to have different stuff each week. Some of it may not be the same as you guys want to see, but there's other people that do. And I've had a couple people talk to me about bringing things on our show. And there's other people that don't want to listen to certain things. But I think it's a good overall podcast about pretty much everything. I mean, we actually are going to fight a walrus here soon.
It's not, yeah, especially if I can get my hands on some of that sperm.
Yes.
I'm gonna.
Wait a minute. Wait a second. KC says he loves the early time. I mean, I mean, I like the eat. I'll be honest with you guys. I was like all day. I was like, oh, I definitely got to get my shower and get ready at 3:00. And it's like, oh, so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we can play around a little bit, and sometimes it's going to be like today. It was the guest had he has to go collect some sperm from some horses, and they're doing it in the evenings. So he had to get going, so that's why we moved it up. But yeah, I mean, if the consensus is an earlier time, we can play around with that a little bit, depending on your schedule and my schedule, and the guest schedule. Kind of depends.
Yeah,
we can play with that.
I mean, it's something. If you guys are really interested in it, put it in our Discord. Drop it in the Discord and chat in there.
Absolutely. And ideas. I think we have a channel in the Discord for ideas. And Fern, by the way, everybody that I've talked to about your topic that I still want, everybody has ghosted me after 3 conversations. So I'm still on the hunt for that topic. We'll get somebody at some point that won't ghost me, but who knows? But thanks everybody. And we will be back at some point next Sunday. It'll probably be the later time just because I've got work travel going on, and we'll see what the setup is like in my hotel. could be interesting. I'll make sure I get a good connection.
Don't forget the carp tournament's the 24th. So if you jump in my stream tomorrow morning, I'll give you the link that you can join the carp tournament.
Yeah, get in on that carp tournament. More the merrier. There's a bunch of good prizes out there. And if you're listening out in Apple Podcast land or Spotify land or watching on YouTube, come on in on the fun on Twitch. You might find some new fishermen that you like, and hell, maybe you're a fisherman and you want to get in on some of these fun tournaments as well. Carpet tournament. Yeah, right. All right, we're gonna get the old raid going. We're gonna go raid some Premier Wiffle. I love this stream. I love these guys.
I've been watching them here lately.
It's so much fun, and it's some guy's freaking house in his backyard in Vegas. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It's one of the best looking ball fields you'll ever see in your life.
So we'll see everybody next week. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.